Gonna show you how to deploy a Scala HTTP4s application onto Blossom in this video. To do that, we're in the doc site right now, Blossom, and you click on View Documentation. It takes you to a bunch of quick start guides. The one we're looking for is down here, Scala HTTP4s. You click on that. It tells you 3 steps. You're going to visit the Blossom itself quick starts page, and you choose the example, and you click Deploy. Click on that. That takes us to Blossom now, and you can see down here there's a Configure and Deploy. You click on that. Then that takes us to essentially the quick start form. And you can see that it's already pre-selected some things for us, which is really nice. Demo has been selected, the demo cluster. So I want to show you that demo cluster I kind of created in order to do this video. You see I created a demo cluster running on Heroku, and we click on that. You can see there's a demo server here with all the roles kind of collapse onto one server. So Blossom, what you can kind of do is you can have all the roles collapse onto one server if you are aiming to save costs. Or you can expand it out if you kind of want scalability and have a separate server for a load balancer, a separate server for web tier, separate server for a worker tier, and even a separate server for services or data tier. So it's kind of up to you how you want to do that. And you can also actually deploy one app onto this cluster, or you can deploy multiple apps to this cluster. You can see I actually have a couple apps actually deployed to this cluster already. So you can kind of basically, depends how you want to use it. You could save costs or aim for kind of high performant kind of cluster, low balance cluster there if you want. And I want to point out that I'm running this on Heroku just to save some money for the demo. But you go back to docs here, you go down to here, deploy onto any of these clouds. So you can see all the major cloud providers are supported, and you can even use your own data center if you want. All that requires SSH access pretty much. Okay, so that is done. I've covered the cluster. Next is the app name. You can see it right there. And then now let's take a look at the repo. So let me grab that and go to the GitHub repository itself. So you can see it's a pretty simple app. It's just an app that, let's look at the source real quick. It's like a hello world app. That's all it really is. Let's see, Scala example quick starts. You can see main. So it's a jokes app. It's running a server here, and then jokes apps right here, and there's a hello kind of example also. So pretty simple if you understand Scala and HTTP4s, and I kept it kind of light and thin on purpose so we can focus on deploy. Next is the container registry. So you need to use the containers registry because what Blossom does is it creates a Docker image and it pushes it up to a repository and then pulls it down to the other servers. So you need a container registry. I'm using Docker Hub here, but you can use any registry you kind of want. All the major ones are supported. I do want to point out, if we go back to the source code here, look at the top level source code. There is no Docker file. So what Blossom does is actually looks at your source code and detects what language and framework you're using, and then will build a Docker image based on that. And that is just the default behavior. If you want to, you could customize it with your own Docker file, or you can even provide it with a pre-built image, and you can deploy that if you need to. So there are kind of many options on how you kind of want to use Blossom here. Let's go ahead and create app now. I think we're ready for that. Now, after I created an app, it basically there's a bouncy arrow up and down here saying deploy. So go ahead and click that. Then immediately it starts to deploy. You can see the recent logs here. There's an apps deploy log. I just went into that, and you can see the apps deploy log. It's like the master log. It's like the parent log. It shows the overall what's happening across the cluster. And the nice thing about this is here is going to be kind of very minimal in terms of logging, so it's not too noisy. And then if you want noisy logs, then you click on each individual server. And then if you click on each individual server, you can see it's kind of going through the Java, Scala kind of install and deploy process here. I'll go back to parent log, but that's nice. That keeps, I think, the logs nice and separate. I do want to point out that it's actually only using one server because we only have one server in this cluster. If you have multiple servers, what Blossom is doing is essentially kind of SSH into all the servers and then execute commands in parallel across them where it kind of makes sense. Now it's going to build everything on kind of one server, and then it's push the image up, and then it's pull the image down these other servers, and then it goes on to the rest of the deployment sequence, which you'll see in this video. So it's going through the build phase now, and while it's doing that, let's just actually go through the dashboard and kind of cover kind of the UI here. So you can see this is where we started. This is where we clicked on the deploy button, and then it started the recent logs. That's the dashboard. Git repo is where you configure your repo settings, and this was provided by the quick start, but you can always kind of create an app and then go in here and configure the repo yourself. Particularly, this is interesting. If you want to configure a private repository, then what you do is you can connect to your provider here. I've connected to only kind of one here, but you connect to multiple, and then you could basically tell Blossom to clone down a private repository using the connection there. Next is Docker registries. Under Docker registries, you can see I just linked one Docker registry, but if you actually click on add new container here, You can see a variety of different registries support it, pretty much all the major ones support it. So you can link and authenticate, and then it's gonna be able to go in there and either pull or push down the image. And then where you want to push the image is where you specify right here. Next is the database. There is no database for this Http4s app, but this is where you could add databases, and you could basically create databases on your own servers here. It's just a couple clicks, and then you could link it to here, and then it provides a magical database URL environment variable that you could use to configure with your app. Here's the environment, and there is no environmental variables here, but this is where you go and basically you add new environmental variables here or remove them. I want to point out that you could actually use this advanced feature here where you could just basically use like a more like env file like kind of form here, and that's a lot easier if you're dealing with a lot of different environmental variables. And you review it and then you click save changes, but I'm not going to save anything here. Let's go back to activity here. We're back on the deploy now. It went through the build phase, and then now it went through the app deploy phase. So let's click on that so you can kind of see. Basically, it's going to use Docker Compose up, so you can see it's pretty simple what it does. And let's actually go back to the build phase. You can see at the end here, it pushed the image up. Let's go back here, and now it went through manage domain sync. It just finished with that. Manage domain sync, what it is it's a short URL that provides you with immediate access to your deploy app, and SSL and or HTTPS is all configured and set up for you there. Back to the parent app here. The last phase is the load balancer phase. So it's going to set up a load balancer so it could route to essentially your Docker container there. And that is all done now. And once that's kind of routed, you can see basically all the containers are going to be up and running. And you can actually click on app logs here, and you can see the logs from the containers kind of here. So that's actually pretty nice. That's going to start streaming in a little bit here. But this is where I kind of go to when I need to kind of debug and look at the requests. So that's very useful and helpful. But let's actually go back to dashboard and click on view app now. That takes us to our short URL here, and here's the app running on Blossom here, or on your servers via the Blossom platform here. You can see it's just a quick greeting hello generator here. You click on that, you can see it's saying hello world, random jokes. So a bunch of dad database jokes or dad jokes here. And then there's some links to documentation and quick starts all right there. So that's how you deploy a Scala HTTP4s app onto Blossom. Thanks.